Hello, I'm Sarah Russinello for Treating and Training Horses. I'm here today with Brad Belinsky. Hi, Brad. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for having me.
Brad and his wife, Lori, are owners and operators of Painted Acres, Inc., a full-service equine facility here in northeastern Pennsylvania. He's the author of the children's book, Apollo the Horse, and also producer of Treating and Training Horses. So, Brad, can you explain to me what is Treating and Training Horses?
Treating and Training Horses is a 4-disc DVD home study course on gaining your horse's performance, respect, and trust. It was shot here on the farm several months ago, and the star of the show is an ex-racehorse. He's a thoroughbred. His name is Northern Castle. A local gentleman by the name of Dave Desco was finding the need for an equine pal, and he showed up at our farm one day, and my wife actually took him out to the main pasture to show him another horse we had that was available for adoption. He was actually a rescue horse. Castle's a rescue horse, or was a rescue horse. No, he is still. And Lori took Dave out to the main pasture to show him a horse named Shiraz, and Shiraz just wanted nothing to do with it that day. It's kind of weird how things happen. Mm-hmm. But evidently Castle was just becoming available at that time. It really wasn't time to switch yet, but you know how things work out. Mm-hmm. And Castle just walked right up to David. And to make a long story short, within the blink of an eye, before we even realized what happened, David had adopted Castle, and we were like, "Oh boy," we weren't sure what Castle or what David's past history was and experience. And even sometimes when folks tell you their experience, there's really not a lot there, so you have to check them out. But as with anybody that wants to start over with a horse or start a new relationship, we suggested that we literally go from the ground up, start with groundwork. So we did, and we came up with the idea of videoing it, and so we did. And I thought maybe it would be a way, rather than teaching this methodology locally, to get it out to more people, possibly nationwide and maybe beyond. And I got to tell you, Castle did a wonderful job. He was a good example of what this training method can do. Castle wasn't, overly bad by any means. He was a horse that was here. He was he was a boarder of ours for 4 or 5 years. And I took him out every morning, and me or someone else brought him in every night, and that was pretty much it. And it's not that I disliked Castle or anything, but he was just another horse that I had to take care of. And then we started shooting this DVD series, and Castle, I actually fell in love with him by the end of the shooting. All the way through it, I kept telling David he responded so well that he's getting a really good horse here. And actually, I was hoping he gave me more problems than he did, but it really doesn't matter, because whether you're having more difficulties or not, you would just add more repetitions and take more time. The basis is still there, the theology is still there, the techniques are still there, the proper order. So that's what Treating and Training Horses is. Castle did a good job.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
I understand that your horse, Castle, is the one featured in Treating and Training Horses.
Yes, he is.
Can you tell me a little bit about Castle?
Oh, I sure will. My first exposure to Castle was out in the pasture when I first came looking for an adoption horse. He came up and kind of nudged me a little bit, which was kind of interesting, but
Right.
It was all out there where he was pretty much on his own with no pressure and very relaxed, which gave me a false sense of confidence about my immediate relationship with him.
So here you are in the pasture, and this horse approaches you, and you think, "Oh, he likes me."
No problem. This will be easy.
Right.
And then when we started working with him in the training, the first time that he was in the round pen with Brad, it all changed. I saw
It's a different
him
side.
kicking sometimes and being really obstinate and defiant and ornery, and it really set me back. I wasn't prepared for that.
I was thinking maybe you had taken on a little more than you were.
A lot more. In
Yeah.
fact, I'd never said it to Brad before then, but I was actually at the end of that day thinking I may not be able to take this horse out of adoption. I may not be able to do this. He's too much. I watched what was happening in the round pen, and I was impressed with the changes Brad got with him, but I had no confidence I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I kept that to myself, and Brad did encourage me. And during the first training, I did the same thing in the round pen and worked with Castle, got his attention, got him moving in the direction I wanted him to go. He started listening and paying attention to me. And I felt like we were starting, even at that first few sessions in the round pen, without a lead on him, he was starting to look like he was going to actually work with me, and I got a lot of encouragement out of that.
So things were looking a little more optimistic then.
Oh, very much, and it really impressed me with the fundamentals of the whole training program, what you do on the ground with your horse, because I would have not wanted some of those things that did happen when he was kind of testing me while I was in the saddle for the first time experiencing that. And he started responding well to the lead rope as well, and the lunge line with me, and by the time I got in the saddle with him, he was real soft. He's always just paying attention to me, and if I just inadvertently touch a rein, he's responding to it. So I have to be really careful with him too, because he's really sensitive to that, and there's no pressure needed hardly at all to make him do what I want, even in the saddle. And it's been great working with him. I've grown a lot in that confidence with him and watching him grow. Others who have known him for several years before I came on the scene first started coming up to me right around the middle of the training time I've had with him, said, Castle's really changed.
Wow.
And they tell me that the same thing was going on with them. They're seeing him just being milder and easier to handle. And the first time after we had started working with him, and one of the girls that was helping bring horses off the field, off the pasture at night, had actually came up to Brad and said, something's wrong with Castle, I think he's sick. He said, why? What's wrong? Well, he's got his head down, and he's just following, and he's waiting for me to move before he does. And he said, well, he's been training. He's acting like a good horse. So that's been great. And I've really grown in confidence with this whole method. I'm looking forward to having, I hope, years ahead with Castle riding and training with him. This method works. I can strongly and unreservedly recommend it to anybody who wants to get a better relationship with their horse, or just generally develop their own horsemanship skills. It will bring them to a new level.
And you've experienced that
I have.
with your
and I
relationship
applaud
with
it.
Castle.
It's great.
Well, that's great to hear, Dave. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Folks, for roughly the cost of one traditional lesson, treating and training horses delivers a multitude of information on what most people are missing: the all-important respect and relationship that foundation training will bring out of your horse, which leads to performance regardless of breed or discipline. Parents, if your youngster wants to get into horses or has already started, this information is vital. Intermediate through advanced riders can benefit greatly if they have skipped this part of horsemanship. If you're going to be anywhere near a 1,000-pound animal, let alone on its back, there's a few things you're going to want. It's respect, compliance, obedience, and performance, all taught to him or her in a gentle manner. Similar courses can cost from 3 to 10 times as much as training and training horses. Give us a call right now, and I'll throw in a copy of my children's book, Apollo the Horse, absolutely free. Apollo the Horse is the true story of an injured chestnut thoroughbred, one day from being put down, but was saved by my wife, Lori. Give us a call.
So, Brad, can you tell me what was the catalyst that got you involved in this type of training?
Well, when me and Lori came here, when we bought Painted Acres, our business model was actually to breed, raise, train, and sell black and white paints. That's my horse, Freedom there. I have another black and white Pinot Legend. Lori's main horse is a black and white paint Star. But we needed to pay the bills right off the bat, so we immediately went into boarding. Probably the best thing I ever did in my life for my own education, because we were backyard horse owners up until that point. And to make a really long story short again, what showed up was a lot of kids that were riding their horse, and it wasn't going well. And I was astounded at this, because I've been studying this type of training for quite a while, a couple of years before we came here, and thought that everybody knew this. And what I saw was just astounding to me. There was kids literally coming out of the ring, out of breath, sweating. The horse was sweating. They were in this big pulling contest. And so I was busy setting up the farm, and we had other people here giving lessons and so forth. And different kids came in and out of our life. And one day, a young girl by the name of Brittany Fisher walked in the door. She was 13 or 14 years old, I think, and she was taking lessons somewhere else, looking for that first horse. And here's what happens all the time. They want a rescued thoroughbred off the racetrack, or a thoroughbred off the racetrack, or a racehorse, or something that's and it's actually harder to retrain a horse than it is to break an unbroke horse. Now, I don't recommend the folks at home, if have no experience, go ahead and try to train their own wild Mustang. Although it's easier, you have to be a lot more careful and take a lot more time. But with a horse that has especially a racing career under it, you have to erase everything that's there and start riding again. So anyways, Brittany Fisher came in, and this is what the scenario, and of course, she rode the horse, and thank God got through that first ride, and fell in love with the horse, and in another blink of an eye, she owned it. And there was a lot of concern over this young lady's safety and the horse, because what usually happens is these animals are passed on down the line and tagged as rogue horses, untrainable, and it's not their fault. They were just not handled correctly or with any authority or experience. And so anyways, there was a pivotal day here. There were some things going on. Again, I was busy setting this place up, running fence and stuff like that, and there was other individuals involved, and I didn't like the way it was going. And the hero of this story is actually Brittany's mother, Joanne. She had to make a decision one day. I think it was about a year into the ownership of this horse. Out here at the main gate, she made a decision to step back. Let's go backwards. That's what I suggested. First kid I ever taught this to, I was scared to death.
Mm-hmm.
But to make a long story short again, it all worked out fine. I forget how long we spent together, but we started in the round pen, went through the lunge line work, got the horse quiet and soft, and respecting her and seeing her as her leader. And the kid today is, she actually made it to states here and shown 4-H a couple years ago. And I was literally shaking in my seat watching this kid. There's a really nice picture of her waiting to get the ribbons, and she's in a big long line. It was a big class, and she's underneath this big U.S. flag. It's just, it was probably one of the best days as a barn owner I've ever had, and probably ever will. No other horse or rider will mean the same thing as they did.
Well, I was looking for a horse at the age of 13 and searched many days looking for a horse, and I came across Andy, rode him, fell in love with him, and ended up buying him that night. And then things went good for a year or two, and then he started getting bad. When I would sit on him, he would buck, and I would get off since I was only 13 and didn't know any better. And then eventually he realized that if I got off of him when he bucked, he would get out of work. So eventually I couldn't even sit on him, and he bucked.
So this
And-
became a pattern for
Yes.
the two of you?
Yes, it had.
Okay. And then, so at that point, you realized there was something you needed to do to fix the problem.
Yeah, my mom actually considered getting rid of him, but I didn't have the heart to do it because I loved him. And Brad actually decided that he could help us fix him. So he took over training Andy, and every day we went out to the round pen. He ended up getting Andy's trust, and then eventually taught me to get Andy's trust, to the point where he got Andy to lay it down, and that's when I was able to get back on him.
Well, that's a great story. So
Yeah.
where are you and Andy today? How is your relationship with Andy today?
Pretty good. He's completely different.
And what kind of things are you guys doing?
Jumping, attempting to jump. We're still trying to train him that. And we actually went to states 2 years ago,
Wow.
6th in the state.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Yep.
So Andy's come a long way.
Yes, he has.
And these techniques you've learned have really helped guide that path.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
There was one other gal that came right around the same time. She was an older girl and had a horse that reared up and broke her jaw. He either broke her jaw or her nose, I don't know. He broke something on her face, and it was pretty bad. And I give her credit because she kept this horse. This horse was pretty much all she had left. And heard about what we do here, or what I did here, and the angle we take. So she came down for a month. And I worked with the horse during the week, and she came down on the weekends and showed her what I did. And that's a real key. You could send your horse off to a trainer, spend a ton of money, have the trainer train that horse, and if you take it home and don't know what they did and how to react when the horse starts doing things, you've wasted your money. And that's really a cornerstone of what I do. I really don't. We will, if someone needs their horse trained, we can take it from 0 to 50, and we'll do that for them as long as they want to get involved in the process and learn what to do. But it's really important that you know how to treat and train your horse. So anyways, this girl spent about a month, very little time. I showed her just a few things. She was doing a lot of pulling, which is how you teach a horse to rear. You keep pulling its mouth long enough, it's going to go out. She went home, and she came back about 3 weeks later. I saw the truck come in the driveway, and I was thinking, oh boy, here we go. You're always a little skeptical of yourself, and did things work, and did the people take home what you showed them and do it? Well, she had inadvertently taken one of my halters home, a rope halter that I had, and she didn't want me to think she was a thief. And she brought it back, and she came in and gave me the halter, and I was like, oh, okay. And of course I had to ask with bated breath, how's so-and-so? And she put the biggest smile on her face, and she said, Brad, I rode him down the middle of Main Street in the 4th of July parade in my hometown this past weekend. And that was just, that right there sent me off to even learn more. I went to more clinics myself. Everybody, I could just ingest as much information as I could, and I've taken something from each of them and added that to my own experience, and I'm still gathering. Nobody knows everything. You're always learning, just like them. So that was the start.
Is it a training method that is open to all disciplines, or is it a certain discipline of riding, like English, Western, or is it something everybody can do?
Oh, absolutely. In my view, first of all, let me start with, is it something anybody can do? I think so. Mm-hmm. And not only that, now they have to take into their own consideration, their own abilities and experience. And, and obviously, if you're going to ride a horse, you're capable enough to work with it on the ground. And in my belief, you should. Mm-hmm. One of the big objections I get from mostly females, younger females and older ones, is you're a big, strong man. You can handle that horse and I can't. And there's one piece of equipment. I'm not the kind of guy to push equipment. I don't sell equipment right now. Maybe someday we will, and there's nothing wrong with good equipment. But there's one piece of equipment that you have to have that makes it much easier for somebody that thinks they can't. And actually, the whole method is a means of making anybody able to do it. We started in the round pen with Castle, and that's an excellent tool to start a relationship and get the trust and establish yourself as the alpha mare with the horse. As far as is English or Western, it doesn't matter. And I'm glad you asked me that question, because I say all the time, and it takes some people off sometimes, but you have to remember what we're talking about here. And this is general training. Mm-hmm. This is foundation training. I always like to say, when you're riding bareback, what are you riding then? English, Western,
right.
dressage? It doesn't matter. You have your hands, you have your feet, you have your seat, you have your voice commands. But what's most important is, do you have your horse's compliance? Now, when you get into showing, that's a different story. You need to learn the tack, you need to learn the proper things to do in the ring. And we have my wife and our associate Casey Walchak handle the advanced stuff like that here. I'm just the basic groundwork guy. But it's been my experience that's what's missing, and there's a lot of people out there that go from A to Z, and they're riding their horse, and we have some examples. I've been lucky enough to have people come that I was able to help, and it's been a real pleasure. And so that's why it was born, but it's open to anybody in English or Western. It doesn't matter. Folks, for roughly the cost of one traditional lesson, Treating and Training Horses delivers a multitude of information on what most people are missing: the all-important respect and relationship that foundation training will bring out of your horse, which leads to performance regardless of breed or discipline. Parents, if your youngster wants to get into horses or has already started, this information is vital. Intermediate through advanced riders can benefit greatly if they have skipped this part of horsemanship. If you're going to be anywhere near a 1,000-pound animal, let alone on its back, there's a few things you're going to want. It's respect, compliance, obedience, and performance, all taught to him or her in a gentle manner. Similar courses can cost from 3 to 10 times as much as Treating and Training Horses. Give us a call right now, and I'll throw in a copy of my children's book, Apollo the Horse, absolutely free. Apollo the Horse is the true story of an injured chestnut thoroughbred, one day from being put down, but was saved by my wife, Lori. Give us a call.
We purchased Ruby for my daughter, Caitlin, who was recommended to us. We brought her home in the fall. They're okay, but of course you go through the winter. There was an accident that happened in May, and she's the type of horse that she is a little pushy, and Caitlin was unable to ride her for a while, and she kind of domineered Caitlin, and Caitlin got to the point where she wouldn't even get on her. She was afraid because of Ruby being pushy. We had taken her to a show for her to do showmanship, and it was a bad thing to do because Ruby reared and bucked, and she couldn't do anything with her. And her father and I were going to get rid of her because we did not want a horse that wasn't safe. But Caitlin fell in love with her and didn't want to get rid of her, and decided to do the natural horsemanship with Brad. And my husband was very skeptical in the beginning. He didn't want to go through it. He actually told me if it didn't work out, he was going to be quite annoyed. But he came, and it was amazing, to say the least. Definitely made a big difference. I think Ruby would do anything for Caitlin. I know she would. They created I See a Bond. And Caitlin rode her last year in the summer for the first time, took her to the show, and she was totally awesome. She was very calm. Caitlin got Grand Reserve Champion that time.
Wow.
She rode her in 4-H. She did showmanship with her in 4-H, and she did very well in showmanship. And from the past, we heard that she was not a horse that could do showmanship at all because she would buck and rear when you took her in. And Caitlin did wonderful in that class. She definitely has come a long way, and that was the reason why I was doing that.
So the relationship with Caitlin and Ruby has improved very much.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Are we talking here about natural horsemanship or horse whispering or, what exactly are we talking about here?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that question, because usually when you mention one of those two terms, the reaction is roll of the eyes and the natural horsemanship wackos. And it depends on what your definition of those two terms are. A horse whisperer, the official definition is a trainer who adopts a sympathetic view for the horse's motives, wants, and needs, according to modern equine psychology. By the way, that was a great movie. I don't know if you saw The Horse Whisperer. It's an excellent movie. It was actually a movie that came out when I was learning this stuff, and there's a great line when the cowboy's on the phone with the lady in New York having the problems with her horse, and she says to him, I understand, sir, that you help people with their horses. And he said, well, no, ma'am, I help horses with their people. And I remember thinking, oh my God, how corny is this? And my cheese alert went like off the roster. And then we came here, and that happens to be true. It's really what happened. You really need to teach people how to understand and communicate with their horse in the horse's own language. So I like that definition, and if you go by that definition, that's absolutely what this is. I'd like to change that just a little bit, though, if I may. Kudos to Webster. A trainer who adopts a sympathetic view. I'd like to change that to person. A person who adopts a sympathetic view of the motives, wants, and needs of the horse. And here's why I say that. Because whether you like it or not, if you're around a horse, whether he's yours or not, he has no idea if you own him. He doesn't care. He cares about one thing, what you do to him when you're with him. So every minute you're around your horse or anybody else's horse, whether you're leasing, whatever, we're all trainers all the time. You're always teaching your horse to do or not do something. And a lot of people don't like to hear that because they think when they go in the ring, when they go to the outdoor, whatever, that's training time. And the simple fact is the horse is always absorbing. They're like a kid. A horse's mentality is that of roughly of a kindergarten kid. And as children absorb information, so do the animals, and they'll react. And as you know, I say to you all the time, they'll do what you show them. So if we change that definition to a person who adopts a sympathetic view for the motives, wants, and needs of the horse, I absolutely agree with that. That's what this is. Now, there's one more line. According to modern equine psychology. There's another problem with that. And there's nothing modern about this psychology. The Don horse, I believe it was in my studies, that was the first horse to be found on the earth. That appeared, so they say, roughly around 2 million years ago. These animals have a distinct impulses and instincts that kept them alive all this time. Now we've taken them and domesticated them, and they are very adaptable, and they will comply with us if we treat them properly. To take it a step further, the first recorded book on this type of methodology was a guy by the name of Xenophon, and he wrote a book 2,300. It's over 2,300 years ago. 2,300 years ago. I have my copy. It's a little hard to understand, but he's saying the same things.
Right.
He was a student of Socrates in ancient Greece. I believe the Art of Horsemanship is the name of the book. If folks want to get it and check it out, it's an excellent read. It's difficult to understand, but and in the 17 and 1800s, there was a Jesse Beeries, Professor Jesse Beeries, that wrote another book. I have my copy, and he traveled all over the United States teaching this methodology. So there's nothing new about it. So that last line, we can keep it there, that's fine, but as long as you realize it is gaining popularity again. It's why I got into it. It's really exciting, and what I'm trying to do is just pass on this information that I've learned from lots and lots of trainers. So again, as far as natural horsemanship goes, there's really nothing not natural about us jumping on a horse and clamping our legs around its side, grabbing a hold of its face with a piece of metal, and yanking on it. But they are adaptable. And when you are training them in this manner, you are communicating with them, and I'm not talking about telepathy or anything like that. You're speaking to them in their own language, which is body language and so forth. So yeah, if you agree with those things I said, this is absolutely natural horsemanship and horse whispering, if you want to call it that. If your horse will do what you want, when you want, at the speed you want until you tell it to do something else, I don't care what you call it.
Hi, Joella. Thanks for being here today. I understand that you have a horse here at Painted Acres that you've worked on with treating and training horses with Brad Belinsky. Can you tell me a little bit about your horse?
My horse's name is Ernie. He came to the farm a few years ago after passing through a lot of trainers who had issues with him. He was very violent with bridling him, like he would rear, and if you put saddle on him, he would buck. It was very bad. And he was just not confident in anything. He was very spooky, and you couldn't try anything new with him.
So all these were kind of frightening problems, would put you in a dangerous situation. Okay. And then you began working with Brad, and he showed you certain techniques. And can you tell me a little bit about Ernie's progress today?
When Brad showed me the methods to use, we worked hard on it, and after some hard training, he started to improve a lot. He was like scared in the beginning, and then now we can bridle him without an issue, and he's actually gotten to the point where we're able to ride him, and I can work him at liberty.
So you can work him now by yourself, whereas before it was a little bit of a daunting task, or it was a little intimidating to work with him, and now how is he nicer? How are his manners now?
I was nervous. Like he would try to push me around, and I just had to show him that I was the boss, and he started to trust me, and he behaved better, and he's just started to trust what I want him to do, and he's confident.
And what are some of the things you and Ernie do together today?
Well, I do ride him often, and I work him off the lead. He'll follow me around, and we can pretty much do anything.
Well, that's pretty special. So he follows you around. That's something that a lot of people would like with their horse. It seems like you guys have quite a bond together. And these techniques that Brad has taught you has helped develop that trust, from what I understand. Well, that's great to hear. Well, Brad, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for spending time with us today and sharing your story. One last thing, though. If folks at home would be interested in purchasing their copy of Treating and Training Horses, how can they do so?
Well, Sarah, the folks at home can call the 1-800 number on the screen, and we'll accommodate them. And it's been wonderful being here with you. Thanks.
Great. Thanks so much, Brad.